And welcome back to IGN Live at E3, coming straight to you from e3.ign.com and youtube.com/E3. And before I get to mention it, be sure to download IGN's free app on Xbox Live. You'll get some cool videos and, well, it's free. Right now, it's time to switch gears. Get it? Get comfy because we're about to show you Gears of War Judgment.
Thanks, Naomi. We're here to talk about Gears of War Judgment. I'm joined by Rod Ferguson, the Director of Production.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Absolutely.
So, a brand new Gears of War game. Tell us what's going on. There's some returning faces. There's some brand new people. Kilo
Right.
Squad.
Right.
What's the story?
Well, basically, we wanted to create another game before the next generation hits. We felt like there was an opportunity there, and so we looked at who could we talk about, and Baird was a natural fit. He's, we've already talked about Marcus and Dom and Cole, and figured Baird's not really been explored as a backstory. And then we looked at where in the world we could, what timeline could we do, and we haven't really explored that sort of the prequel area, that really post E-Day. And so basically, it's a couple of weeks after E-Day, and Baird's leading his own squad as lieutenant with Cole. We have two new characters, Garen Paddock. He's this former UIR refugee, and he's kind of the devil on Baird's shoulder. And then we have Sophia Hendrick, who's an Onyx Guard cadet, and she's sort of the angel on his shoulder, giving him advice all the way through the campaign. And basically, things have gone terribly wrong for Baird and his leadership of the squad, and he's on trial for that. And what you play is actually the testimony of the trial, and you get to find out why Baird is where he's at.
So this seems to be a running theme in the Gears games. People being accused, put on trial, thrown in prison.
Right.
These guys don't really follow rules, do they?
No, they do not. But this is an interesting time in the period of the world because, what we like to talk about where fighting humans in the Pendulum Wars was sort of like fighting in World War II, and then fighting against the Locusts is kind of like when, America had to shift into what it was like to fight in Vietnam. And it's that kind of hey, we have to change our ways if we're going to succeed. And that's kind of where you're at in this moment in time. It's kind of, Baird is helping sort of the bigger cog kind of wake up to, we have to change tactics.
So during the Microsoft conference, you debuted the first trailer, and we got a first look.
That was our mini teaser.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So now, since then, the bigger trailer is live.
Right.
Let's take a look at it, and you can give us kind of the director's cut version of what's actually happening here.
The pop-up video version, if you will. So, well, maybe our audience is too young for pop-up video.
Our survival depends on one thing. Gears
or not.
Orders.
It's actually running on the screen back there. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I was looking at the no signal screen. Sorry. Yeah. Well, basically, I mean, it's what we were trying to do with this teaser was really sort of tease the idea that we were thinking the game would be about Marcus, and so you saw the shackles and you saw somebody being dragged in. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is Marcus's story going to prison. This is what this is, right?" And we really wanted to have that sort of big reveal at the end of Baird, looking up and going ending on that Lieutenant Baird sort of name, so that people go like, "Oh, wow, that's about Baird." So, and it's really trying to set in that idea, and it introduces the four characters and kind of sets that context. And there's a lot, if you listen to the actual dialogue, we put a lot of stuff in there, like, hey, you may have killed a lot of locusts today. Well, that's why we want to talk about this, a very high action game. This war has just begun. Oh, it's a prequel just right after the Emergence Day started. And then it goes to the war crimes and this stealing experimental military technology. And you're like, oh crap, I want to go do that. That sounds cool. So every line pretty much in that trailer was there for a reason.
Gotcha. Okay. So now you've worked on pretty much every Gears game that's come out so far.
Right.
Now, People Can Fly are developing this one. How close are you?
Well, it's actually a shared partnership. Basically, so one of the things that, like I said, we were trying to find an opportunity to get more Gears content, another Gears game out before the generation shift. And People Can Fly is a perfect partner for us. They're part of Epic, and they had great success with Bulletstorm. Critically, it was an awesome game. And so we were just looking at how can we work this so that we can actually use them and work with them. And they had a lot of they're really big fans of Gears, and they had a lot of great ideas that they wanted to contribute. And so we found this where they're mainly now taking the campaign, and we're mainly taking multiplayer, and then we're still collaborating back and forth together on it. And it's found this great sort of perfect mixture.
Gotcha. Now, is there anything that you could talk about that's really overtly different in the single-player formula? Like, we're familiar with playing in a co-op party of 4.
Right.
We're familiar with the mechanics, third-person, cover-based, stop and pop.
Sure.
Is there anything that is different that stands out from the single-player perspective?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing differently. I mean, there's basically, we're kind of going away from our heavily scripted cinematic experience, and we're getting this sort of pure action experience. So it's a lot more of a kind of a retro throwback to Gears 1. In fact, PCF developed this thing they call S3, this smart spawn system, and it'll actually go in and based on how you play, it will change things up. And if you die and you go back in, potentially different enemies and everything will show up. So it plays differently each time. And then we actually have this really cool thing called the declassification system, where since you're playing Testimony, along the way you'll encounter these sort of classified bits like, hey, did you know that Kilo Squad did this only with hammer bursts or whatever? And you go, well, that's like an interesting challenge. And so if you declassify it, now it changes the mission for you, and now it becomes more challenging because you're limited to a specific weapon. Or maybe it's a different type of enemy, or maybe it's an ammo count, or maybe you find more ammo. It's all these types of things where you can go in and change the Testimony as you play.
Interesting. So that's single player. So far, as far as multiplayer is concerned, you've talked about a new mode to the Gears series. It's called Overrun.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. And then we have some B-roll actually that we can cut to as well, so people can see the gameplay.
Sure. Well, I mean, Overrun is sort of this. It kind of came out of this sort of love from the fans about looking at Beast and Horde and saying you have these two great co-op modes. How come they're not competitive? And so, you know, we even tried to do that a little bit in Gears of War 3. We said, like let's give it a shot. And we weren't able to kind of nail it, and so we ended up passing on it and put it on the shelf. And then when we got PCF involved, we said, let's relook at this and let's go back to this, because it was in high demand at the time. And by creating a class system, we actually were able to get it to work and make sense and have it balanced. And so what's really unique to the Gears franchise now is you have the COG system, these COG soldiers that are broken up into classes. You can be a medic, you can be a soldier, you can be a scout, you can be an engineer, and you can actually play class-based against the Locust Horder coming at you 5v5. So it's a whole new take on that sort of system.
Now, will there be any new units that you can unlock that we haven't seen in Beast or Horde mode yet?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's something we have, you know, the usual new game thing where there's new weapons, new creatures, that kind of stuff, but we're not really talking about that yet. But there's definitely going to be stuff to do. That's going to be lots of stuff to show. And it's like I was saying to you earlier, like even with the multiplayer, I mean, Overrun isn't the only multiplayer we're doing. So, you know, in the future, we're going to talk about all of our traditional multiplayer modes as well. Gotcha.
Well, we're super excited for the game.
Okay.
We want to see more. Can't wait to play it. Thank you so much for coming on and showing it to us. Rod Ferguson from Epic. You can follow him on Twitter at GearsViking. That was Gears of War Judgment. Back to you, Naomi.
All right, thanks for that demo, guys. Now, if you find audience members want more Xbox action, don't touch that dial or button. Up next, we're going to have a look at the new Connect Fable game called The Journey. It's going to be quite the journey, so why don't you stay a while?